Hello, everybody. It is Rocco, your boy, coming at you once again with another. Oh wait, this is gonna be a series, another Adepticon video. Was able to go to Adepticon this year, and take part in 2 different tournaments. It was 8 games of Warhammer, and up first was with my friend Travis. Say hello, Travis. That's a disembodied voice.
Hello, Travis. This is a disembodied voice.
Wonderful, and you're wonderfully converted and done up Tomb Queens. Because we did the old world, where we got to play.
Did.
Yeah, we did. And we had a lot of fun. We had the most fun out of anybody there. So said the TO even. So we had a good time. And I know for me, I was really excited to actually go to the thing. This is our display board right here that Travis made up so lovingly, and then I was able to rebase my models to fit it.
We made it all fit.
We did. No, it all fit. It looks great. And we ended up having a great time. I got to play my Empire stuff not as Cities of Sigmar, but as actual Empire for the first time since I was a teenager, and that made me really happy. I had to bring out all my artillery stuff. And, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with Tomb Kings just in general.
Yeah. Necropolis Knights are a ton of fun. So is a Necrolith Colossus.
Well, even what got you into Tomb Kings?
What got me Total War and probably Tomb King Tristan.
Yeah, do it.
Seeing his stuff on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Just got me real interested in Tomb Kings. Painted up a bunch of them for Age of Sigmar. Started to hear rumblings about Old World coming back, and started picking up kits on eBay on the cheap and painting things up, and
yeah,
waited for forever until we finally found out what base sizes things were going to be, and then slapped them on those squares.
Tell me about it. I know I lucked out for me because I bought a Wood Elf Battalion box for cheap for stuff to be Sylvaneth and Age of Sigmar, but it came with like the rectangles for all the Tree Lords, and it by dumb luck those are the rectangles that the artillery went on. So my rebasing got very nice very quickly for me. I didn't bring out the other half of my big Empire army are mounted knights. But I didn't have the bases in time, and also I'm a Wood Elf lover, as the channel knows. But I was able to already have my well-painted cities stuff, and everything was there. We rebased, did everything good, and here we are. I'm going to real time this here. Here we are, looking at the lists on Old World Builder. Up first, so we can get me out of the way with all my talking. I have a Wizard Lord that was level 4, had a special armor to give itself a ward save and still be able to cast spells. It knew battle magic that did great. Honestly, throughout the games, it was nice. It's a good spell lore. My Lector of Sigmar, who is probably my MVP, with an awesome Mace of Hellstrom that can go down to either its regular weapon attacks or just one super-powered mace attack at strength 10 and like Ren 5 or something stupid for d6 damage, and an Empire Engineer to try to make my artillery do good, and 20 veteran state troops with hand weapons. Picked up some like drilled light armor, shields. I bought light armor for all my stuff that could, and it honestly saved me wounds, because even just having a 6-up armor save is so much in this game when damage isn't just coming out in buckets all the time. I've got a detachment of 10 handgunners in light armor, 14 crossbowmen in light armor, Empire archers that had fire and flee, and the scout special rule that were just amazing for me. And then I had a great cannon, a mortar, and my old Hellblaster volley gun that I love so much. And going to the Tomb Queens here, for Travis, I can give a quick rundown if you want. I'm kind of springing this on you. Sorry.
Yeah, I got the list here too.
Okay,
so,
yeah, go ahead.
Tomb King threw in a chariot because characters had and units had to be under 300 points.
That's
So, but the chariot's also just pretty good.
yeah.
Talisman of Protection made for a great mobile anvil. Most of the game just ran it in whatever we didn't want to fight a lot.
Yep.
And it sat there until the end of the game and eventually died, or didn't.
I
And then
it survived like 10 rounds of combat per game, so it works. The tech works.
it does what is written on the package.
Yes. Then 2 mortuary priests here, huh?
Yeah, 2 mortuary priests, 1 on foot with Amulet of the Serpent, and then stuck that in with archers to poison attacks and just plink away at things, and generally be a nuisance. And then another mortuary priest difference was on steed, and then gave it the warding splint. This was my uh, hero priest. Why can't I think of the Necrotech?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, no, you
Yeah.
nailed it. On
Yeah,
horse,
just a
rode with
lot
the horse
of
archers.
crumbling. And
Yep.
then elementalism on both of them, and mostly I was just they were level ones, because you took the level 4 wizard, and wizards had to add up to 6.
Yes, let me also say real quick too. With these lists, each team had their halves were 1250 points. They could have a shared up to 6 levels of wizard levels. There was, I believe, 150 points of artifacts per side, per partner. No unit could be over 300 points, which means no dragons, but wyverns still got in. And some griffins that were really good. And I mean, that was basically it. Oh, and everyone counted as friendly to their teammate because we didn't want to have to worry about animosity or anything. All right,
Yeah,
on to your core units.
yeah. So on core units, block of 3 skeleton chariots with the
Full
uh,
command. And the war
musician.
banner.
Yeah, and the War Banner that I forgot was in my list until we were looking at it again, and would have certainly helped a whole bunch of combats. Where I was like,
It's
really want
fine.
one more combat resolution every time with these chariots.
Oh, would have
Just getting
totally
3 of
mattered.
them to do that. No, you just need a War Banner.
Yep.
So, take a War Banner, folks, and don't
Yep.
forget it exists.
Stops you from crumbling if you didn't lose combat by that much.
Yep. Skeleton Archers, 5 of these, Chariot Runners. These
Mm-hmm.
things are I don't know what to say other than they're the most useful thing to have. Like, just make sure your chariots never get charged. Just
Yep.
your chariots or whatever you want never get charged. They have their skirmishers, chariot runner. Yeah, they die, but who cares? They just let you always be able
They're
to
a
charge.
great screen. They're a great
Yep.
screen, and it allows chariots to charge through them to get into the enemy with a chariot runner special rule. Then you've got a block of 13 archers on foot. You've
Yep.
got the 9 horse
9
archers.
horse archers, and I gave them light armor.
Yep.
Mostly I had points, but
Yeah.
also because I stuck the one priest on horse in there,
Yep.
and just didn't want them all dying to a stiff breeze. They mostly, if
It
anybody
matters.
ever, yeah, if anybody ever shot at them, I was only losing like 1 or 2, and that was it. And then I brought them back,
Yeah.
and then the block just moved around, unless I deeply misplayed them, which happened in the game.
Yeah, it's fine. And rounding out your list, you have 2 blocks of 2 Necropolis Knights with Champ and Banner. And
These were probably the most useful things in the list.
yes.
They charged whatever we wanted to charge. They do not die right away.
Yeah.
And they do things like
Yeah, they killed things. I even at one point, because of how the combats all went, you were in combat with everything because I was mostly shooting. So you had me running a unit of Necropolis Knights around, and they're killy enough. You know,
Yeah.
they do the job. For it being a unit of 2, they did good. And then finally, your wonderful conversion of the Necrolith Colossus.
yeah, Necrolith Colossus kills things. Also, just doesn't die right away. So
And
there's a couple times we were like, what don't we want to deal with in combat for a while? All right, that's what the Colossus is going to do.
and people were scared of it, so they tunnel visioned on that while we got to do other things. Going back to the picture here. Yeah. So going back into game one, we had the Battle of the Plain here, where it's the 12 inches away from the middle, run at each other, kill points are the name of the game, and we played High Elves and Tomb Kings with there's a big Necro Sphinx up front, and if you look at the picture to the left of the board, this is the game that's been going on for a little bit. The chariots have been grinding, but my cannon was able to get a really dirty shot into the side of the enemy chariots and killed two of the three of them, which is really cool. And we had just this huge cinematic fight in Tomb King territory. What were some bright spots for you about the battle there, Trav?
Bright spots in that battle. I mean, it cleaned up most things. Did some countercharging against the High Elves. Was actually going pretty well until I accidentally misjudged the Phoenix base size, because it used to be on a giant base in Age of Sigmar.
Yes.
And now a relatively tiny base in Old World. Back onto a relatively tiny base in Old World.
Oh my goodness. It is like the size. It's like two cavalry bases long and like two wide, if that. Like, it is narrow and short compared to the, like, you could almost fit a Gargant on the other, because I have it on the it's a big oval. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge in AOS, or it was.
Yeah. It's chariot base in AOS.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was going pretty well until that was able to just get behind my chariots and in all of my stuff.
Yeah.
And then that was problems. But until then, it was pretty standoffish. Necropolis Knights charging, I don't know, the High Elf.
Those were Phoenix Guard.
The Phoenix Guard. And then almost chased them down to kill them all.
Yep.
Couldn't get there.
Yep, and then your other Necropolis Knights fought because that's actually alone over there in this picture is their Tomb King, who dueled your Necropolis Knights to pretty much a standstill. He eventually won the War of Attrition there. And then for me, other bright spots honestly include that Great Cannon also took out a couple enemy Necropolis Knights, as well as another good angled shot. And my Lector of Sigmar, which is really a War Priest, and I used the War Priest from the Silver Tower board game because I never got to use him in Age of Sigmar. He never had rules, and I loved him and his little Griffhound were my characters for that board game. So I wanted to take him along, and over 2 combats, I killed the big ass Necrosphinx. I think I did 3 damage each time. With the kabong there, wounding on like a 3. Doing the prayer to reroll the wound roll was amazing. And it was closer than we're saying it, because again we were neck and neck. The wheels fell off about round 4. And also something that I know now going into the future, the mortar that I have under the blast template, unless you're in the middle of the circle, is just strength 2. So going into things like skinks and chaff hordes, great. Swarms, great, sure. But going into skeletons where I'm only plinking, like I hit a whole unit and I'll get like 20 of them under the template, and wounding on 5s is good, and I'll still kill like 10 of them. But when they're bringing back like 5 or 6 or 7 a turn, it was not worth it. I should have been targeting the High Elves and doing some danger close fire support there. But again, this is the first tournament we've been in for the Old World. It's a learning thing.
Yeah. If we were to redo it, we'd probably just flip-flop deployments and undead versus undead, and then let you shoot a bunch of elves.
Yeah, because the handguns being strength 4, the crossbows were good. I probably like even if it was just I moved the mortar and the cannon flip flop them or
So
move
you
them more
shoot
to the
that in
right, so I
behind.
could so I could have seen the brick of 30 spearmen. Especially
Right.
because all my hits these games, except for the last one, were like dead on to it. And then I had one scatter that almost had the angle of clipping them from behind. But again, things to learn, which we did. Going into game two, the Battle of Pine Crags, which is a flanking scenario where it's really again, it's a 6 foot by 4 foot table. I'm gonna say the deployments were tight because we had 2,500 points of stuff to fit in, and then we didn't have our right and left flanks.
Right.
But then it was you can take stuff out and then put it away, and I was able to set up all my artillery and my shooting pretty much on this hill to set up for line of sight shots. So scatter dice weren't gonna be as effective. I could shoot over our stuff. And our opponents were again high elves, but then orcs and goblins, which I haven't played against yet in the new game.
Yeah, I had neither played against the orcs and goblins. It's pretty fun.
It was nice that they didn't have the old animosity rule where like on a one roll dice and on a one they fight each other, don't move. They like you still get the goofiness of being orcs, but they actually get to play, which is nice. And our opponents had two fully 3D printed armies that were really well painted. And the opponents list, I remember for the high elves, it was 2 units of their scout archers, the reavers. They had a lion chariot. I remember there were 2 doom divers. There were a couple groups of Lothran
Two
Sea
blocks of
Guard.
spears, and then
Yep.
the wyvern, and they had 2 chariots. The
Oh
orc
yeah, two
chariots.
orc chariots too that were such a pain. They had such high toughness. Um, and again, this is another one where we thought we were out of it, and then we came back a bit, and then we just couldn't get through the finish line here. The game opened up where because you're like Rocco, I see on the picture you have the hill. I see your Hellblaster. I see your mortar. Where's your Great Cannon? Well, dear viewer and listener, it blew up. On its first shot, I misfired, and then I re-rolled into a misfire. And then I rolled a 1 on the misfire chart, and it went kaboom. And that happens. That's the fun of this. Is that first game, it killed like 400 points on its own, and this game it just blew up.
It
You know,
blew up. It just totally blew up.
shit happens.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, this game we almost, or we did table the high elf player,
we did.
and then it was just what 2 blocks of the 2 blocks of spearman, the wyvern. I think both the chariots were also
Yeah.
gone or almost or going to be gone.
Going to be gone.
Yeah.
And we didn't like we finished fine with time too. It was just one of those things where like we didn't have enough I'm gonna say knights or lance or +1 to wound or things, and I should have been more aggressive with my infantry blob. That's what I learned through this too. Is that first game I thought it was a fluke killing the Necrosphinx with my priest, and then having my big block of 20 dudes, being 21 models in there with the priest thrown in, that could fight, have rank bonuses, had a banner, and all these things, and I could challenge people out to then score extra combat resolution for overkilling things. I should have been more aggressive with that, and every fight I went into, I either went even or I won, which was nice. And then we had things with trying to get shots off onto the chariots. A Doom Diver graciously killed itself in response to my cannon blowing up.
They also almost killed their own wizard one time.
Yeah.
With the Doom Diver, that was hilarious.
That was hilarious. And that wyvern, because I just looked at it like, oh my god, they brought a dragon. Oh, it's different. That felt like fighting a dragon.
It sure felt like fighting a dragon. Would have been nice if I would have remembered about the war banner. Probably would have not lost that combat eventually, and then your priest maybe could have came and bonked, but
Oh my
I
god,
don't
yeah.
think
No, that
totally undervalued the the value. Wow,
yeah.
just use the word to describe the word. But big blocks of infantry with a nice slappy hero in it, like you were saying, like
Mm-hmm.
ended up being way more valuable than I thought it was.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where, like, we brought a lot of shooting. This isn't necessarily a shooting game in the way you'd think. There's a lot of stuff that, because it's strength versus toughness, like orcs are toughness 4. A lot of the guns and stuff that I brought are strength 4, but a lot of bows and stuff are strength 3 or strength user. And then you've got to roll for a bunch of modifiers. Like this game, it was silly because I rolled, because you can roll a 7 to hit. You got to get a 6 up and then a 4 up afterwards. And I rolled a bunch of those. And this was a game where I rolled to hit very well, but then rolling to wound with things having higher toughness, like toughness 5 on the chariots, and then still having an armor save after that, was still rough. And you got to get in there and you got to hit stuff. Um, any other closing thoughts on this?
On this game, mm, no, I don't think so. Other than, I mean, obvious value in hills, but I don't think there's anything really need to be said about that. Um,
Yeah.
Pay attention. I get it'll come up more in the next game, but I thought that we actually did a pretty good job, like being cognizant of terrain, especially like these houses,
Yes.
and like using them when before the game for like these are impassable. Well, they're impassable, and the movement that forces people to have to do in order to like engage around some of these impassable
Yes.
terrain features.
Also, if you see a little clear shiny thing on the table in this picture, I summoned a flaming vortex that I got to control, and that ended up killing so much stuff.
It didn't
Um,
want to move a lot, but it ended up killing a whole bunch.
yep. No, it finished off the chariot. It killed a bunch of the enemy skirmishing archers on horseback. It messed up some infantry.
It
Um,
also shut down that entire like lane
it
of
did.
combat. Like we didn't really have to like worry about anything coming through there because
Yeah,
that pillar.
because not only did it hurt stuff when it went through things, if our opponents on their turn walked through it, it was a deadly test.
Yeah,
And that actually killed 2 of their reavers off of that,
right.
let alone, because
And
they
then
were
they ended up
playing.
in combat with nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And then, because they were playing a game with their reavers had a scout move and a bunch of stuff where they could just run around the house shooting us. But eventually they had to run through a big flaming thing of fire, and a bunch of them got toasted. And it also kept our deployment so it made sense. We didn't worry about getting flanked. Because that's one thing we did good with this is I think we still deployed really well in all of our games. And then going on to game 3, the doom of Otto Todmeyer the third, whose family eventually becomes Toddbringer, and then there's a whole thing with that in Total War games and in later Warhammer lore. Is we end up having, oh my gosh, high elves again again versus lizard men, which some of you may be thinking, oh, that's Seraphon. No, this is the original name of the faction. They are lizard men. They are wonderful. The guy that got me into Warhammer played lizard men with a Slon that I could never kill. He always blew up all my Empire stuff specifically. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is a 10-year-old me's gonna love this. And we were playing Breakpoint. The point of this was you added up all of what your model's unit strength was, and then once you were at a certain breakpoint of unit strength left, the game ended in a major victory for whoever knocked you out. It was Monster Mash. It was 2 elves on griffins. I think they were both princes. There was magic flying around in the Slon. There was a Carnosaur. And this is one of those things, too, where, if you hear my dog in the background, where because the lizards had their model refreshes recently, and the high elves are just always popular. People were able to buy this stuff up on the cheap, knowing the old world was coming, or you could still buy the new models if you wanted to, and field these air quote legacy factions in, say, the Lizard Men, um, and an unreleased thing in the High Elves, and it was a very interesting game. I wish I had a better picture. I didn't have one that showed the house, but cut off to the left there is a huge house where, because this is late in the game where we're at right now in the
Yeah.
picture, but there is a
One of
huge,
the has it.
huge house that was in basically the middle of our deployment zone, and we were able to position, because it was impassable terrain. Our opponents couldn't get around the house, like they can't walk through it, and because you have to stay in your big battle square formations,
And an
uh,
inch away.
yep, an inch away, um, they couldn't actually fit their troops in after they charged in a bunch of stuff and blocked themselves from combat, allowing us to shoot them up more. My highlights of this game were on the far left flank. I had a unit of scout archers that were there to hold up enemy knights. They were
Did
silver
they get
helms. They did. It was the point was there's a rule in the old world called impetuous where some knightly units have to charge the nearest thing they see. I thought they had it. They didn't. I'm like, oh, you know what? There'll still be a screen anyway. They'll die. Set up a return charge from us. And my unit of 5 guys with no armor survived and won the fight against a unit of 10 elven knights who have been training for 1,000 years in the way of the blade, and 5 filthy peasants that picked up a bow and some arrows and a t-shirt held them off. And honestly, because we were expecting them to die, they actually blocked our army as well from being able to charge properly.
Yeah, we had like the weirdest charge conversation with Brendan the judge, like trying to be like, okay, so is this even possible? And we ended up like not being able to charge them, and so we ended up retreating the Necropolis knights that were over there. I don't
Yep.
think those ones ever died, but they got a Carnosaur to end up. Well, I think they did, but after Carnosaur basically had to chase them into the corner of the table and ran itself off the board, and it's just irrelevant for the entire game.
And that in
But,
itself was amazing because that was a 300 point character that all of
yeah.
a sudden killed 100 and some odd point unit of Necropolis Knights, then was just out of it. So we were
And same with
able. Oh, go on, go on.
yeah, same with those knights, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
neither of those models that we had there over there, and we had the Colossus too, which held things up, but they spent way more points than what was over there trying to get what was over there, and they weren't able to get all of them.
Yeah, they
So
spent at least 700 points of their army, maybe a bit more, to get into maybe 400 points of us.
yeah,
And then because of our use of the terrain, just like the way this picture cropped them off, they just weren't on the battlefield anymore. And then we had some fun stuff here. My artillery, because again, the opponent had a big block of 20 skinks. There were a bunch of Croxagore, a big block of Saurus warriors, and my gun line shredded them. My big
yeah,
block of infantry went in to shredded them with the shooting. The skinks fled. My infantry charged the Croxagore, won the fight, um, made the Croxagore flee. They failed their panic check. They ran them down so far they caught the Skinks and the Croxagore because of how the models were positioned. I was able to tag both units. And then my one fatal flaw was I positioned myself in my unit and I turned in such a way that the Slan could see me through those woods. And it was able to do a spell from the lore high magic called Fiery Convocation, which is it was a huge template that didn't scatter off my unit. It hit all 21 models, and then as you can see on the end of the tray, only the front rank of 5 survived. Um, And that pretty much spun the game back in their favor. My cannon, though, was able to pick up a Stegodon that is not listed here. Um, Behind the slot in the picture, you can actually see their dead pile. It was huge. And we kept going closer and closer to the break point. We were in the lead up until then. And then it came down to what the enemy Griffin here was doing. And as they were
They had
kind of
two
bringing...
at one point. I think they ended up down to one after some combats, but
Yeah. We were honestly a wound off of winning this one at the end. Um,
they just couldn't roll anything to hit there
no,
at the end. We just like we figured it. I mean, there were probably better paths to victory, but at the time we were like, okay, well, we just have to shoot a couple things and kill them, and we win.
yeah,
And we don't even have to put ourselves in combat to give them a chance to win during this turn.
yeah.
And
Other ways too. Other big moments of this for me was my Hellblaster volley gun shot a bunch of Reavers dead because again they had the skirmishing cap, but then they charged in, and then my
they couldn't
crewman.
make it.
Well, no, the first time with the single model, my crewman actually won the fight and killed the knight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, and then the second time, they couldn't get in because they couldn't fit.
And then you got to shoot them from point blank.
Yep, and then I killed a bunch, and then the unit size became so small they could fit, and I suffered for my own success. But then the crew still fought and held them up. It was again a very crazy, very fun back and forth game. That really came down to that one spell and me not being able to dispel it. You know, I couldn't plan for that, and then he rolled hot on the like 2d6 attacks or whatever it was, 3d6 whatever. And they brought it back at the end. But again, we still had a lot of good high points. Our shooting did generally throughout the game did really good in this one for
Yeah.
both of us.
Yeah. I the poisoned arrows. I remember picking off a number of things. The horse archers
Yeah,
picking away at stuff. There was one point in time the Necropolis Knights we deployed all the way on the right side, and they got a flank charge in, which I know helped a lot
They
over on
did.
your end, and that let you clean up basically everything else after that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because it stopped them from being able to be aggressive onto my crossbowmen and my cannons. Because, and this is how we also built our list to work too. Was I had the fire base, but not necessarily the bodies or the speed, and so your knights are able to go on the flanks. They got aggressive. We were able to set up a bunch of favorable fights after we planked them down. Um, and it was a shame that we went 0-3, considering we had three close games going into round 5 and going to the end of the game. Also, cool thing to mention with Breakpoint is there isn't actually a round limit on how many turns you play. It
Right.
just is literally go to time in a tournament setting or the Breakpoint. Yeah.
I
Um.
will say the other thing that I really appreciated is we made it through like all of our games. Like
Yeah.
we didn't get. I mean, we're not able to. We were able to finish all of our games within the clock. So
Yeah.
I thought that we had a good pace of play, and that's not always the easiest thing
For
to
a
do.
brand
Two
new
people
freaking game
on each
system
side.
too,
Yeah.
with 4 people playing because it's 2 teams of 2 and everyone checking the rules and everything. Yeah, that was great. Again, I had a lot of fun. We tied for best sports. Keeping that in my heart. We got good scores on paint. The final tiebreaker was because we went even on paint with the people that tied in sports, so they scored a few more battle points than us. But again, I'm happy with everything we did here.
Yeah, me too. It was a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it was. And it represented our gaming club, which we haven't said at once this whole episode, the Pants Mafia. Um, and yeah, we did good. And so, closing thoughts here to wrap this all up. I want to thank the TO, Brendan, for running an amazing event. That was a big ask. This was an event that actually filled in for another one that didn't get a lot of interest. This was short notice. This was him making up rules and trying things out, like with the points limit. That was something actually him and I talked about before this whole thing, because I had also been playing a bunch of Old World. I also want to. I didn't put it on you, but I do want to thank Travis because I wouldn't have gotten in here if it wasn't for you. You saw the event and jumped on it because you heard I've been playing a little bit, and then here we
Absolutely.
are. So thank you so much, oh captain, my captain. Um, and then for the rest of these points too, some of them were a little memey, but bear with me here. This is the first Old World Teams event, and also an Old World Singles event happened there as well. And hopefully, it's not the last time these events get run. They're a lot of fun. If you had the nostalgia of playing before, you're gonna find the game is very similar to like fifth and sixth editions with some sprinklings of seventh and eighth there. Um, and it's still recognizable. And also, wow, that was a lot of high elves.
Yeah.
I dedicated 2 bullet
High
points to
elf
this. That was, I was expecting Bretonians. I was expecting frickin' Tomb
Empire,
Kings,
Tomb King.
Empire. Yeah, what were all these elves doing? They're supposed to be near extinction. What the hell? Ah, so many high elves. Um, and then for me as an Empire player, I live by the cannon in this build. I die by the cannon. It's my Nolan artillery train, going out to the Badlands here. My artillery, when it worked, was amazing. When it didn't work, it was a game. Um, Again, the highlights of knocking off Chariots and Necropolis Knights, and also the third game killing the Stegodon. Well, did 5 wounds to the Stegodon. It had 6, and then I killed it with follow up like patter shots. I think I killed it with a sniper rifle on the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it would give the kill to the cannon that blasted the huge chunk out. Um, and I was very happy with how my list performed. Going up to like a 2K game, I just throw in my knights and another unit of state troops that are cheap, so then I guard my own flanks, and we're there. And then finally, remember your items, especially
Yeah.
your
Don't
war
forget your
banner.
war banner.
You don't.
Don't do that.
Don't do
Don't
that.
don't be like, oh man, I really wish that I had 3 more chariots so that I could have another combat resolution. Or you could
No.
just remember that you have a war banner.
That you paid points for?
Yep. And it's a whole lot cheaper than 3 chariots.
My God, is it? But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and we're gonna have some more Adepticon uh, coverage soon. Because next, as long as I can wrangle all these cats together, will be the AOS doubles event. Team, excuse me, the AOS team doubles event. It's a mouthful that I was a part of, where it was the 4 of us were Oryx of Chaos, and I got to play Zinch with a fully converted Zinch army out of Cruel Boys. So until then, be nice, roll some dice, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.